Going viral can turn you into a superstar overnight, but what happens next decides whether that fame becomes the start of your legacy or the first step towards your downfall. For Salt Bae, a single 10-second video changed his entire life. One moment, he was the internet's luxury chef, sprinkling salt in front of celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio and David Beckham. The next, he was slashing prices at empty restaurants, getting thrown out of Champions League after parties, and being roasted by the very same internet that once worshipped him. It's almost unbelievable that a man who turned a simple sprinkle into a multi-million-dollar empire could fumble it all so spectacularly. But that's exactly what's been happening. And the reality is, Salt Bae's downfall is only accelerating. But before we dive into how it all fell apart, we need to rewind to the very beginning of his story. Because before the memes, the golden stakes, and the embarrassing viral clips, Nusret Gökçe was just another school dropout with one obsession: mastering the craft of butchery. For years, he was nobody, just another face in the kitchen. His passion drove him to travel, chasing experience wherever he could find it. Eventually, he opened his own small steakhouse in Istanbul and slowly began building a career. He started recording short clips of himself slicing meat, uploading them for a tiny online audience. Then, in 2017, came the video that would change his life forever. It was just 10 seconds long, him flicking his wrist and sprinkling salt down his forearm onto the steak like some kind of culinary magician. At the time, he couldn't have known it, but that little stunt was about to launch him into internet superstardom. Overnight, Salt Bae was born. The sprinkle became a phenomenon, transforming Nusret into the must-visit chef for billionaires and A-list celebrities. His Istanbul steakhouse became the ultimate hotspot, where the rich and wannabe rich gathered for a taste of his viral magic. And almost instantly, he went global. Locations popped up in Dubai, Miami, London, Los Angeles, New York, each one selling the exact same experience: overpriced steak wrapped in gold leaf and the bragging rights of saying you ate at Salt Bae's restaurant.
He wasn't just a chef anymore. Salt Bae became a living tourist attraction. And people weren't just paying for food, they were paying for a performance. Thousands of dollars for a golden steak, just to watch him flick his wrist and sprinkle salt on it in person. And for a while, it worked. His restaurants were packed, his brand was unstoppable, and his sprinkle was everywhere. But here's the problem. When your empire is built entirely on spectacle, it only takes one tasteless move for the world to turn on you. And that's exactly what happened in 2018. Because when Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro appeared at one of Salt Bae's restaurants, feasting on luxurious steaks while his own people starved during a famine, the internet exploded with rage comments. Being away makes you realize every bite hits different when you remember people back home don't even have a plate. As a Venezuelan, it angers me seeing my president feasting on a meal while me and my family were starving. Shame on him. The outrage wasn't just aimed at Maduro. It began spilling over onto Salt Bae himself. People started seeing him less as a fun internet icon and more as someone who cared about nothing except money and fame. And the thing about chasing the spotlight is this: eventually, it shines in the wrong direction. Fast forward to December 18th, 2022, the FIFA World Cup final in Qatar. Moments after Argentina's legendary victory, Salt Bae somehow slipped past security and made it onto the pitch. Now, even that in itself was questionable, but what he did next made things far worse. Because while the world was celebrating one of football's greatest moments, Salt Bae wasn't thinking about Argentina. He was thinking about himself. Instead of staying on the sidelines, he forced his way into the middle of the celebrations, pulling Lionel Messi for a selfie, trying to sprinkle salt for the cameras, and even grabbing a player's medal, putting it in his own mouth like it belonged to him. And then came the moment that crossed the line completely. He tried to take the World Cup trophy itself, even kissed it, which, by FIFA's rules, is a privilege strictly reserved for the winning team. The
The footage was excruciating to watch. Players looked uncomfortable, fans were furious, and Messi's own body language made it clear he wanted nothing to do with him. The way he forced himself into every moment was just embarrassing, snatching the spotlight, acting like he earned it. Watching him pose and bite that medal made my skin crawl. Nobody invited him, yet he made it all about himself. Media outlets slammed him. Fans called him disrespectful. Even commentators described it as shameless self-promotion.
Not in any way related to any of these Argentina players. It struck a wrong chord. It struck to me as like kind of this sort of ceaseless self-promotion of this guy. And look, you're a successful businessman. What you do works, but like, this is their moment. It's not yours.
When Salt Bae was later asked why he did it, his excuse didn't help at all. I didn't go on the pitch with the purpose of advertising. I just felt like it. Then it was a bit of a surprise. I never ever wanted to overshadow anything. I didn't like the attention, which of course nobody believed. That single moment didn't just make him a meme again. It forced FIFA themselves to step in.
World's governing body, FIFA, has opened an investigation into a security and protocol breach at the end of the World Cup final in Qatar. This after celebrity chef Salt Bae was filmed harassing players from the victorious Argentine team, including Lionel Messi.
The situation got so serious that FIFA banned him from all future FIFA events, a punishment reserved for someone who had completely overstepped his boundaries. You'd think after being globally embarrassed like that, Salt Bae would have learned to tone things down, but instead he doubled down. Not long after, during the Champions League after party, Salt Bae attempted another desperate stunt. He tried to crash the event, reserved exclusively for players and officials, in hopes of reclaiming the spotlight. But this time, things didn't go his way. Instead of sprinkling his way back into the headlines, he was caught, humiliated, and literally thrown out by security, like any other unwanted guest. Salt Bae later tried to play it off, claiming he was just there to return the love and sign autographs for fans, pretending he didn't know it was an exclusive event. But by that point, the excuses had become predictable.
I always think that that's always just going to be a path to cringe. Just imagine getting a huge ego because you sprinkle salt down your arm on overpriced steak.
Because, let's be real, Salt Bae had built his entire persona on a single viral gesture. And once the internet started mocking it, he didn't have anything else left to fall back on. But these desperate stunts weren't just about clout. They were the symptom of something much bigger happening behind the scenes. Because behind the golden steaks and flashy restaurants, Salt Bae's empire wasn't nearly as glamorous as it looked on Instagram. The illusion started to crumble when his own employees began speaking out. Reports surfaced of staff complaining about exhausting work schedules, unfair treatment, and being underpaid. One manager, who wasn't Turkish, said he was constantly sidelined and mistreated. And when he finally spoke up about the discrimination, he wasn't listened to. He was demoted. That wasn't just favoritism. It was outright discrimination. And it didn't stop there. Female staff told even darker stories. One waitress said she was forced to wear nightclub-style outfits instead of proper uniforms. Another revealed that when she was sexually harassed by a customer, she was told to play along instead of being protected. Others went as far as calling Salt Bae a dictator with a god complex, which, considering he built his fame by literally dropping salt off his arm, is almost laughable. But according to reports, the situation was even more serious than it sounded. Some employees claimed their passports were confiscated, so they couldn't leave the country. An act that, if true, goes beyond arrogance and into exploitation. And then there was the case of 5 grillmen who finally had enough. They accused him of forcing them to work 72-hour weeks, all while skimming a percentage of their tips. Even though the cut was only 3%, the principle was obvious. It was pure greed. When the case went to court, the judge agreed with the workers. Salt Bae was ordered to pay them $230,000 in compensation. But instead of accepting the ruling gracefully, Salt Bae showed his true colors. He suddenly fired them, claiming their performance wasn't good enough. A convenient excuse, but one that revealed exactly how he operated. And the bad press didn't just stop with staff. Soon, customers started asking hard questions too. For years, the outrageous prices were part of the appeal. People loved flexing golden steaks and $1,000 receipts. But the moment Salt Bae himself posted a receipt online with a smug caption, "Quality, never expensive," things flipped. What he thought would boost his luxury image had the opposite effect. Fans were furious. People started asking, what are we actually paying for? The gold leaf? That could be bought at a local baking shop for under $12.
Former employees claimed they were pressured to lie about its quality. Suddenly, the whole experience started to look less like luxury and more like a scam. Online, the backlash was brutal. $1,200 for a steak, $75 for mac and cheese, and $18 for a single Coke, and they swear it's not overpriced. Absolute comedy. His restaurants went from being viewed as elite dining spots to tourist traps. Ratings plummeted. Reviews described his food as mid and terrible. People who once bragged about eating there now mocked the idea. Imagine dropping rent money just to have a dude in sunglasses sprinkle salt down his forearm onto your steak. Couldn't be me. At one point, his London restaurant was even ranked among the worst in the entire city. And just when it seemed things couldn't get any worse, a tragedy exposed another dark side of his brand. In 2018, Salt Bae's obsession with theatrics backfired in the worst way imaginable. At one of his restaurants, staff put on a flashy fire show at the table, a performance designed to wow diners and create viral Instagram clips. But this time, it went horribly wrong. The flames spiraled out of control and set multiple customers on fire.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Four tourists, who had only come for the so-called signature experience, ended up walking away scarred, literally. The most tragic case was Kristina Tresnikova, a young model who suffered third-degree burns over 35% of her body. What should have been a luxury dinner became a nightmare she'd carry for the rest of her life. Salt Bae suddenly wasn't just seen as a cringy meme. He was now being called reckless and inhumane. The lawsuits came flooding in, 8 in total, some from burned customers, others from employees who claimed they were being mistreated, and the controversies kept piling up. In 2020, another customer, Dwayne Miranda, claimed he'd been scammed at one of Salt Bae's steakhouses. According to him, he'd ordered a standard $275 tomahawk steak, but when the bill arrived, it had been swapped for the golden version, priced at $1,000 each. He wasn't even told about the upgrade until the check hit the table, leaving him with a bill of $5,000. When he refused to pay, the restaurant called police. Miranda eventually paid just to avoid further trouble, but later took to social media to expose the experience, calling Salt Bae a scammer. And his story struck a chord, because for years, people had wondered whether the golden steaks and overpriced sides were just smoke and mirrors. Now, they felt they had proof. The backlash only grew stronger. Celebrities who once rushed to be photographed with him quietly backed away. His golden empire started being described less as fine dining and more as a tourist ripoff. And by 2021, the once unshakable brand had become an internet punching bag. But as damaging as the lawsuits and price scandals were, what came next hit Salt Bae's empire even harder.